Have you ever wondered what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? In the late 17th century, the Ottoman Empire was that unstoppable force, constantly pushing into the heart of Europe. But in 1697, on the banks of the Tisa River, they met their match in a surprise attack, so devastating it would change the course of history forever. This is the story of the Battle of Zenta, a military masterclass that slammed the brakes on Ottoman expansion and set the stage for a new European order. For centuries, the Ottoman Empire had been apart from its heartland in Anatolia. Its armies had swept across North Africa, the Middle East, and deep into the Balkans. Cities like Constantinople, once the jewel of the Byzantine Empire, were now Istanbul, the magnificent capital of the sultans. By the 1680s, their expansion seemed relentless. They even laid siege to Vienna, the very doorstep of the Holy Roman Empire. Although the siege failed, the threat remained very real. Europe was on edge. In response, the major Christian powers, the Holy Roman Empire, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and the Republic of Venice formed the Holy League. Their goal was simple: push the Ottomans back. This ignited the Great Turkish War, a conflict that would rage for 16 long, bloody years. The war was a seesaw of victories and defeats. The Holy League managed to recapture key territories like Hungary, but the Ottomans were far from broken. They were resilient, with vast resources and a formidable army. Every gain was hard-won, and every loss was a potential turning point. By the summer of 1697, the situation was critical. The Ottoman Sultan Mustafa II, a young and ambitious ruler, decided to lead his army in person. He was determined to reclaim the lands lost to the Holy League and restore the empire's dominance. He gathered a massive force, estimated to be over 80,000 strong, and marched north with one target in mind: Hungary. Facing this immense Ottoman army was the imperial force of the Holy Roman Empire. But they had a problem. Their commander had recently died, and they desperately needed a new leader. The choice fell upon a man who was not an emperor or a king, but a brilliant, audacious military strategist from the Duchy of Savoy, Prince Eugene. Eugene was only 34 years old, but he already had a reputation for being a tactical genius. He was daring, decisive, and had a knack for seeing opportunities where others saw only risk. When he took command, he found the imperial army outnumbered and in a precarious position. The treasury was empty. The soldiers' pay was late, and morale was low. Prince Eugene knew he couldn't afford a straightforward, conventional battle against Mustafa's larger force. He needed an edge. He needed to be smarter, faster, and more ruthless than his opponent. Sultan Mustafa's plan was to march north, cross the Tisa River, and capture the fortress of Szeged. In Hungary, this would be a major strategic victory, reversing many of the Holy League's recent gains. Prince Eugene, however, was shadowing the Ottoman army's every move. He used his cavalry scouts to constantly monitor their progress, gathering crucial intelligence. He learned that the Ottomans were slow, burdened by heavy baggage and siege equipment. This was his first clue. Eugene realized that if he could force a battle on his own terms, he might just stand a chance. He raced his army to intercept the Ottomans, trying to block their path to Szeged. The two armies played a tense cat-and-mouse game across the Hungarian plain. Sultan Mustafa, realizing Eugene was trying to cut him off, changed his plans. Instead of heading directly for Szeged, he decided to cross the Tisa River near the small town of Zenta. His new plan was to march into winter quarters in Transylvania, avoiding a direct confrontation with Eugene's army for now. He thought this was a safe move. He believed he had plenty of time to get his army across the river before the imperial forces could catch up. This was a fatal miscalculation. On September 11th, 1697, the Ottomans began their river crossing at Zenta. They constructed a pontoon bridge, a temporary floating bridge, to ferry their troops, artillery, and baggage to the eastern bank. The process was slow and chaotic. First, the heavy artillery went across, followed by the Sultan himself and his elite Janissary cavalry. They set up a fortified camp on the far side, leaving the bulk of their infantry and supply train on the western bank, waiting to cross. It was at this exact moment that Prince Eugene's scouts delivered the news he had been waiting for. The Ottoman army was split in two, caught in the middle of a difficult river crossing. Their formidable force was vulnerable, divided by the very river they thought was their escape route. Eugene saw his golden opportunity. He knew a conventional commander might hesitate, thinking it too risky to attack an army that still technically outnumbered his own. But Eugene wasn't conventional. He ordered an immediate forced march. His soldiers, sensing a decisive moment was near, covered miles in record time, driven by the urgency in their commander's orders. By late afternoon, they arrived at Zenta, catching the Ottomans completely by surprise. The scene that greeted Prince Eugene was a strategist's dream. The main body of the Ottoman infantry was trapped on the western bank, with the Tisa River at their backs. A narrow pontoon bridge was their only escape route, and it was already congested. On the other side, the Sultan and his best cavalry could only watch, unable to intervene. The Ottoman camp on the near side was protected by a shallow trench, but it was not designed to withstand a full-scale assault. Eugene didn't waste a second. He immediately deployed his army in a crescent formation, a sweeping arc designed to encircle and crush the trapped Ottoman infantry. His plan was to pin them against the river and annihilate them. The attack began as the sun started to set. Imperial artillery opened up a devastating bombardment on the crowded Ottoman lines. Cannonballs ripped through their ranks, causing chaos and panic. Then, the Imperial infantry charged. The Ottomans, caught completely off guard, fought back fiercely, but their position was hopeless. They were squeezed from the front by Eugene's soldiers and penned in from behind by the river. As Eugene's forces pushed forward, the Ottoman line began to crumble. Soldiers desperately tried to flee across the pontoon bridge, but it quickly became a death. The bridge was swamped with panicked men, horses, and wagons. Under the immense weight and chaos, the bridge collapsed, plunging thousands into the swirling waters of the Tisa. For those left on the western bank, there was no escape. Prince Eugene's troops pressed their advantage, showing no mercy. The battle turned into a slaughter. The Ottoman Grand Vizier, the second most powerful man in the empire, was killed trying to rally his men. Many of the highest-ranking Ottoman commanders fell alongside their soldiers. By the time darkness fell, the battle was over. The result was one of the most one-sided victories in military history. An estimated 20,000 to 30,000 Ottoman soldiers were killed or drowned, compared to only a few hundred casualties for the imperial army. The entire Ottoman infantry on the West Bank was wiped out. Prince Eugene Spusas captured the Ottoman army's war chest, containing millions of piasters, thousands of camels and oxen, all of their artillery, and the Sultan's personal seal of office, a symbol of ultimate authority. Sultan Mustafa himself could only watch the destruction of his army from the other side of the river before fleeing in disgrace back to Istanbul. The news of the disaster at Zenta sent shockwaves through the Ottoman Empire. It wasn't just a military defeat, it was a national humiliation. The Sultan had personally led the army to its doom, and the empire had lost the core of its fighting force in a single afternoon. The myth of Ottoman invincibility was shattered. For the Holy League, it was a triumph beyond their wildest dreams. Prince Eugene became a hero overnight, celebrated across Europe as the savior of Christendom. The victory at Zenta completely changed the dynamic of the Great Turkish War. The Ottomans were no longer capable of launching major offensive operations. Their will to fight was broken. 2 years later, in 1699, the exhausted parties signed the Treaty of Karlowitz. This treaty was a landmark moment. The Ottoman Empire was forced to cede vast territories. Hungary and Transylvania were handed over to the Habsburgs of the Holy Roman Empire, officially ending over 150 years of Ottoman rule in the region. Other territories were given to Venice and Poland. The Treaty of Karlowitz marked the first time the Ottoman Empire ever formally surrendered land to its European rivals. It was the beginning of the end for Ottoman expansion in Europe. From this point forward, the empire would be on the defensive, gradually losing territory over the next 2 centuries, until its final collapse after World War I. The Battle of Zenta stands as a testament to brilliant military leadership and the importance of seizing a fleeting opportunity.